we were just cowboys and cowgirls trying to mix it. And like the people element is ultimately the reason why the company works, right?
What other lasting impacts? I hope some of the don't take yourself too serious. There was a lot of Fast and Furious references, absolutely a lot of Taylor Swift references.
Hey, welcome everybody to Startup Anthology. This is the first video podcast of an episode. Everything else has been audio. So this time I'm meeting with my two friends, Dmitri, Julius, and Nathan Wang.
Going on, everybody.
And we are going to discuss who actually is employee number one at Icon.
I love this conversation already.
So let me just take a second. Dmitri, go ahead and introduce yourself. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So Dmitri, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Or two. Dmitri, Julius, employee number one, Icon. I started the organization summer of 2018, I believe.
That's right.
And kind of coming off the heels of a previous startup that included two of the three co-founders, a little weird shed called Treehouse, a little Home Depot meets Whole Foods amalgamation where we were selling everything from like power walls and solar roofs to chicken wire, just like a really strange place for local home improvement that had sustainability at its heart. And the interesting thing about that place is like the brainchild for what would eventually become Icon was built in one of the conference rooms there in a one-off conversation. It was like, hey, what if we stopped trying to incrementally improve crappy houses by 10, 15, 20, 30% efficiency? And what if we started trying to build a better home from the foundation up? Fast forward a lot of strange twists and turns, and we ended up at Icon. So we'll have a robust debate about who started first. And ultimately, I think the what we've built together, the three of us and the hundreds of other employees that came through those walls, had a tremendous workplace opportunity, and what a special thing to be a part of.
Awesome. What did you do before Icon?
Before Icon, I served in the United States Marine Corps for a decade in multiple different theaters, from service to warfighting. But in the gap between that and completing my education, I actually was working at another construction startup, kind of looking for ways to like incrementally improve waste mitigation, incrementally improve housing, and ultimately was looking for something a little bit more fast-paced, energetic, and focused on the problems at hand instead of like trying to increase margins. And that thing ended up being Icon, where I met Nathan and you for the first time.
Actually, you hired me. That's the crazy part.
I hired everybody except for Nate. I'm very close. I mean, there's a number of employees that I can count on one hand that roughly predated my time there.
Well, Nathan, go ahead and introduce yourself, your background, and
Yeah. So I'm an engineer by education. After leaving college, I was at a consultancy up in Chicago, and I was at a satellite office in Raleigh, North Carolina. But that's kind of where I got my toes dipped in 3D printing. One of my clients was 3D Systems down in Rock Hill, South Carolina. They do the big like SLN printers, and the big resin bats and whatnot. So worked on that, but mostly was doing medical devices. So hopped around with a bunch of medical startups. There's one in Austin that I joined when my wife was doing her graduate program at UT. There I met some of the co-founders of Icon. But right around the time when Icon was, I guess, officially incorporating, my wife got a postdoc in the Bay Area. So we moved out there, where I joined a joint venture between Google's Verily and Johnson & Johnson, where I was doing medical robotics. So had a little with robotics over there. Again, all medical stuff. But then I got a phone call to come back to Austin as Icon was taking off. And so where that falls in the time, we'll see. I met one of the co-founders, and he found out I was an engineer. And as early as like 2013, 2014, we started chatting about eventually doing maybe something together.
Was this Loomis?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so we went through like a whole bunch of iterations. There was like some baby gear in there. There's coffee stuff, rain barrels, a bunch of weird eccentric products that never kind of came to fruition. But he introduced me to Jason Ballard, who would eventually become the CEO of Icon. We started working on the beginnings of Icon before it was named Icon. And then my wife got that postdoc and we moved and then came back. So, yeah, if I got some dates written down, if we want to.
And let's do it. The fun thing about this story is like, we will have this conversation and ultimately we will land on a decision. But I think the fun thing about like what we've been able to do is like have a really meaningful impact on something that I think ultimately is like gonna have the sort of impact that it wants to have in the world. And like rarely do you get a chance to like be so early at something that like seems like a crazy idea and then see that idea through. And all the tremendous people that we've met and stories that we get to tell in the lexicon of Icon is absolutely like, it's otherworldly. Like the fact that Nathan and I are doing different startup things and like working 10 minutes down the street from one another in a completely different state than the state that we've met in, on the same trajectory that we were on when we worked together is like absolutely incredible. You can't make that stuff up, right?
No, it's crazy. Let's, we'll just start with the first one. I got a question for both y'all. How does each of you define being employee number one at Icon?
It's easy. I was the first offer letter that was signed once the company was incorporated.
He may have signed his offer letter first. That may be a true statement. When they sent me my offer letter, I was on vacation and I didn't sign in for it after I received.
And here's the funny part. Did Loomis tell you to go on vacation? Or did you just need one in between?
I was on, so I interviewed and then I told him I was going on vacation. And I later found out that ended up being like really good for them because they were still like finalizing funding.
The A wasn't done yet.
Yeah, it wasn't done.
Or the seed, excuse me.
Yeah.
The seed wasn't done yet. So this is super funny because I think this like it exists in both of our stories. The idea is baked, right? Everybody's ready to go. They're still lining up funding. This thing hasn't happened yet, but it's feeling more and more like momentum's going to carry them across the finish line. So when I get the phone call from Loomis, he's like, hey, I know that you're somebody that I'm supposed to be talking to about this weird thing that we're trying to do, but it's not ready yet. So go ahead and take your wife on a vacation. Give us 2 weeks. And by the time you get back, the funding will have hit the bank. Like that's how thin the margins were we're talking about.
But even before that, Loomis, Ballard, and I built the crappiest printer you probably would have ever seen in a warehouse.
Is this the wooden prototype?
The wooden prototype.
Oh.
And they offered to pay me. They offered to hire me. But because I was working for a different consultancy in Austin at that time, when I passed it through my boss, he goes, I can't control what you do on your free time, but you can't get paid for it. And so I volunteered part-time.
That doesn't sound That doesn't sound anything like an employee to me. I'm not getting paid. There's something about free time. There's no contract. It doesn't sound like an
That's probably true.
But I was voluntarily consulting with Icon before it was named Icon.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Nathan Wang gets all the credit in the world. There are a few people that predate the company charter that like had meaningful impact on the organization and its ability to go on and raise money, build a very robust tech stack, a very robust software offering. And we're probably going to find a way to weave all of those people into the story. But there are a lot of people that deserve credit for the work that it took to even get to the point where a fundraiser is possible. And a working prototype was something that we could pitch to people to raise money off of. So like, that's the truth.
So you're a volunteer engineer. That's that worked.
Yeah, I know. It was just because I was employed somewhere else and they were like, we can't control what you do on your nights and weekends. But if it's related to what you're doing now, which is very broad because it's engineering.
All of it was kind of very ad hoc.
It was.
And I think even for the first year of the company, we were just, trying to find our way. Like, hey, this thing that's not supposed to work that only we believe in.
Yeah.
I'm still, I've been outside of the company ecosystem for almost 2 years now, and I'm still trying to explain to people what I did for the 5.5 years that I worked there. It's just such a robust and confusing product offering for some people that unwinding that, pulling at that thread is just a little bit more confusing than you would assume. But yeah, there's a lot to it.
That's true though, because we actually, I mean, even whenever I was there, because I definitely wasn't employee number one, but you got to do a little bit of everything. And Dmitri, I know you did this for sure. Do the HR stuff, do the operational stuff, do all those other different things. And then Nathan probably had to do the similar. So we'll start with Nathan this time. What was your roles at, or your job descriptions at Icon?
Oh man. So
Agitator.
yeah,
Meme lord.
it's around quite a bit. Yeah, making people not take it too serious. What was my primary? No, I had been doing robotics and mechanisms and all that stuff for quite a while, almost 10 years at that point. So I was kind of the first jack of all trades, if you will, for being an engineer, right? So everything from mechanical design, which is my degree as a mechanical engineer, to I don't know. So the beginnings of software, robotic software, like control systems, all of that. So this is before we hired our first controls engineer, and we're still using a contractor to do kind of like
pump systems.
Yeah,
Yeah. We were using Nathan's personal family truck to move around the city. We didn't have a truck at least.
Our server was in my living room for the first 6 months.
Oh, wow.
All of our like data. It's like,
Is there a data room? No, there's data in my room.
So,
Wang
but it was in my kid's quote unquote playroom too. So it was like I always had like a doggy gate around it. So that like would it knock out our SolidWorks server on a random afternoon. But yeah, that server later became like our in-house SolidWorks server when we finally got an office. And
was that the one by Doug's office?
It's the one with the password taped on it with masking tape. Yeah, super secure.
Most secure. I think before we had security protocol, I think it was just like in a closet. And it was like, don't go in here. It's like, what's in there? It's like the entire company's database. Don't do it.
Yeah. So yeah, and then building that technology team as well. I hired. Well, I guess you signed their contract.
We hired
the first controls engineer. Wally, and then hired 3 mechanical engineers soon after that. So Dana, Kevin, and Austin came very soon after that, and then try to recruit Evan Jensen for the longest time.
That was fun. We'll have that conversation.
Squishy brained on YouTube. Squishy brained.
Yes. we basically the guy on YouTube, and because again I'm not a controls engineer, but we kept on asking him controls questions until he finally agreed to do a small consulting job.
Yeah, we beat that man into submission.
And then finally he joined. And then we did have a software engineer by the name of Jason who joined soon after I did. He was working for a venture firm that had participated in that seed round.
Mm-hmm. That man deserves a ton of credit for our escape velocity that we were able to achieve. There's a hero story about him that deserves to get told on this pod. But integral to our early success. Absolutely could not have done things that we're doing the software side of that.
But I think there's on Icon's Instagram, there's still that like first team photo. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like the 3 co-founders, Brooke, who runs PR, me and you, Harper,
absolutely,
Alex, and then Jason and his wife. I think that
any of the Pump Studios people, like
I don't know,
I
think so. Not yet.
That was kind of the team.
Yeah. So that was it. And then later on, there's like a 1-year photo where everyone's wearing their Icon black jacket that has like 20-something people in it, but that included Doug.
So we had expanded. We were still under 30 employees. We kind of had some operational staff. We had like a full control system staff, like a mechie offering, something that started to look like a professional services, like outbound facing sales, and executive leadership. But I mean, we're still just 25 people bopping around trying to like make it happen, and perform all the job functions, wearing every possible hat, while also trying to like search for office space, like fundraise, get into IR compliant, do all the things you got to do.
What Dmitri and I joined, we were past the warehouse state, but we were working in like an architecture studios, like back office.
Yep.
Right.
That was,
Which is why we could have, that was on, it was on code. So we're the world's
first apartment 3D printed residence. Yes, in Austin, Texas, and we were working there, which was basically just a handshake deal that our co-founders made with a construction buddy of theirs that was like, hey, we're going to go try to build something cool on a property you own. If it works, you can keep it. And if it sucks, we'll tear it down and like handle all the sweat that's there. And that house still stands today.
Yeah. So there's that. And then we were at Galvanize?
Galvanize, yeah, I think so. For this is pre-WeWork. This is like a co-working space.
Okay.
Hey, you pay $1,000 a month to like use our coffee machine. There was a keg of beer. So like the transition from the co-work space to the office space was actually really interesting because it was like there was a big product sprint that all of them are handling, and our CEO was pretty much like, find me an office. This is our price range. You tell me what we need to grow into, go find us an office. And you've been to Austin, and the audience out there knows what Austin is now, but we're at the time where like the warehousing district wasn't as robust as it is today. There were some things you could find in the city proper, but I'm out in Kyle, I'm in Buda, I'm like outside of the city circle. And someone was like, hey, go check this little place next to the brewery in South Austin called St. Elmo. And sure enough, one of our eventual, I'd say, mutually aligned friends of the business, JB Sauceda, shout out to JB, was moving his company out, and all of a sudden that unit was available. And when we moved in, the Sauceda Industries sign was still up on the building, and we literally used Nathan's truck to like bring over the first batch of material in this like probably 40,000 square foot warehouse. Like just two people in a Honda truck and nothingness while around. Oh, that was a special moment because like that represented like, hey, we're a real company with a real address and we can store the server, not in the kiddos player.
But but you are right. All we had was internet and a warehouse because the office space hadn't been built yet.
No bathrooms.
It was just a bucket.
Like just a warehouse in Texas.
Yeah. And so we would walk across the street to use St. Elmo's bathroom all the time. But we would always like try to buy a beer. We're over there.
Hey, it turned into a fantastic like co-branding relationship. We eventually like had an open tab with them that we leveraged the hell out of. And some of the best beer in the country. And fantastic people that definitely helped us out, and they did too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of relationship building that it took to like the things that we needed that we didn't currently have at that time. So you're leaning on the other people in the business park, you're leaning on friends of the business, you're leaning on, contractors to ultimately like build a stable enough foundation to try to like build the company off of. And like, if it's not for incredibly, I think, variable and pliable people, you fold up the tents and you go home because like you're just not going to get it done. But if you're able to like find an alleyway and use the bathroom so you don't miss a parade, and like convince the beer people that like, don't worry, this will be worth your time, energy, and effort when there's 500 people working here. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then you start bringing 500 people over to the business and they're like, thank you so much. That stuff is a part of why the business works. And it seems like the way ancillary details, but it's all necessary to get to where you're going.
Yeah, it's the story behind it all. It's the experience, the culture, the ecosystem, everything that was there that we had that like this random, it's like the real world, right? Random group of people put together, forced to live with each other. So Dmitri, what roles did you have at Icon? What were your different job titles?
Well, it was operational. So I was the company's first operator, which means like Nathan and I's kind of first task was like, hey, take this like very immobile 3D printing system, right? Like a gantry system that at the time was not modular, and like figure out a way to transport it to store it, to quickly set it up, and ultimately deliver prints. And at the time, those prints were like in Austin, but very quickly, we decided that like the projects, in order to create news and traction, were going to be international. So the world's first 3D printed neighborhood that's in a small community called Nacajuca, Mexico, Austin, like the first 10 employees figured out a way to get this very clunky system on the back of an 18-wheeler and get it across state lines.
Oh my goodness.
And out of the country during the midst of an escalating trade war between the United States and Mexico, with thousands of pounds of unmarked powder in the back of this thing, and try to convince the Mexican government that we needed to bring this into the country.
We drove down to the border.
And you did that at the border.
Yeah. We drove down to Laredo, Texas on like a random Thursday. It was just like, we got to send people to the border. Go.
I mean, like literally printing out paperwork from the State Department, filling it out on the road trip there to like present it to get the printer across and through customs so we could start this print.
Yeah, I printed out all the like the material links, like on our way down at the local Staples Center, so that I could like slap them on the back of material before they crossed the border.
This story actually needs a few minutes.
Yeah, it needs some context.
Yeah, so I think one thing that people might not understand and recognize about like the 3D printing space now, because we've kind of matured, we're another half decade and beyond into this, is like, this was nominal technology. Like this was just not something that people understood at scale. And if you had a 3D printer, it was a desktop printer, and like it was probably Teflon that you were printing with. So like a concrete printer that's the size of a house on the back of an 18-wheeler in a broken second language, and you're trying to describe that to an individual that's inspecting this, and you're trying to describe it at the component level in another language, and you were not making any progress. And we're talking about there needs to be a label on this wire, and there needs to be a label on this nut, and you need to explain to me what those tools are for. We've got hundreds of tools that are unmarked, that make sense to us, but they don't make sense to the Mexican government. And it's just me and Nathan, like, as they're asking questions and like frowning at stuff, he's like handing me labels and I'm slapping labels onto stuff to make stuff seem official. And after about 4 or 5 days of this, I think they finally just like gave up. We're like, fine. It's like, they're going to keep showing up and they're going to keep being here unless we let this thing through. And we like the forcing function of just like the power of we won't quit got that thing in us.
And it was 4 days getting it to get it across the border?
Oh, longer, actually. It was 4 days of negotiation. And then it had to like sit in escrow where they had to like talk about what it was. So whatever reports that they were gathering, we were trying to like explain it.
Yeah.
Had to go to some other official's office where they had to sign off on whether or not it could go in. The expressed amount of time it was supposed to be there. Mind you, we've got a partner news story that's got relationships with the Mexican government. That's where like the project came from. And so we're like calling in favors to see if they can call presidents to try to see if we get this thing released. I'm not actually sure how it finally got done.
Yeah. I'm not, well, so talking about like wearing all hats, our accountant at Icon spoke fluent Spanish. And I would often call her and be like, hey, I know this is outside of your realm, but I need you to explain this technical thing to this border agent right here in Spanish. And we would go back and I'd be like, you know, when you're describing like a lead screw and like a concrete cleaning ball and stuff like that, like I don't even know how to.
Yeah, like what's the update? Yeah. We don't have one because that's not a thing that exists. But we tried like hell, and ultimately we were successful. So yeah, that project was severely delayed because of the time it took to actually get the printer across the border. But now it's kind of memorialized in the history. If you go on Apple TV and look up the show All, the season finale of like one of Apple's flagship shows talks about this project. It's very much worth your time to go check that thing out. It was a year of our lives, but it's a 27-minute episode that showcases all the work that went into that thing.
Yeah, that was my first project too. Well, I didn't start the first slab, but that was the first project that I worked on for Icon, was down there in Nacajuca. It's crazy. It feels like forever ago.
Tremendous amount of appreciation for us for people like you who joined the company. There was no international component of the company when we were writing these job descriptions. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, very well qualified individual. You want to leave your family for a bit and like go to another country to build these things? And everybody just said yes. And without that, I don't think we, again, established escape velocity to get to the next step. So it took a whole bunch of Jeremy Willis's to get there.
The culture originally at Icon was very much so like a get it done kind of deal.
Yeah. No questions asked and like no animosity, like, yeah, still do it, thing.
Yeah. And the fact that like, I think all those requests came from we all have to make this work to make this all worth our while. And I think that unfortunately, as startups get larger and more corporate and have more hierarchies, they definitely lose that kind of early day sparkle, if you will. There's less of that camaraderie that you get when you're in the first 20, 30 people.
Yeah, I think that the good old days conversation is always interesting because it's very much true that you romanticize what's in the rearview mirror because you don't know that you're in the good old days. But to Nathan's point, and maybe a slight derivation of that, is like a lot of the camaraderie that we got, you make substantive trade-offs for things there. But what I will say is like, there's just a beautiful energy and like a bunch of energetic, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed go-getters trying to make something that doesn't currently exist in the world happen. And when you get a chance to be a part of that and it works, there's almost nothing more special than maybe like the birth of a child, but like it's right up there with some of the most special things that I've had an opportunity to be a part of. And you get to forge friendships with people that just are going to be a part of that story for the rest of your life. And yeah, that's very cool. Like you don't get that at a corporate job. That's not what it's designed to do. But while we romanticize it, you're still talking about 110 hours a week and like frustration and hard days and things don't work and you gotta pick each other up. Like we all quit at some point, but having no one all quit at the same time is like what keeps it going. We definitely had like Jesus on that first lab in Mexico where it's not working and it's like, hey, you're not up for it today, but I've got it today. You're not up for it today, but I've got it today. I need you to pick me up today. And just that leapfrog effect is like what allows you to get there.
Have you ever had that experience before Icon in other places? Or is this just kind of like unique to what was like the culture here?
Good question.
This was I definitely was in a similar culture when I was at Verb Surgical before Icon. So that was the joint venture between Google's Verily and Johnson & Johnson. But I think it has something to do with the size of the company. I really did. I was
a 30.
Yeah. Well, I was around the 100th employee.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, when I joined them, but my group was relatively small. We were like 8 or 9 people. And that initial push to like make everybody a believer, right? I guess maybe not the size, but the state of the company that it's like, this is actually possible. We're smart people. We're going to figure it out. That proving of yourself, I guess, and proving of the company is, I think, what makes it all worthwhile and has that spark in the beginning. I worked at 2 other startups. One of them was a medical startup that had already IPO'd, and I was in the thousands of employees. They had already proven themselves, right? They're on the public market. Didn't feel the same way about that company. And then my current company, it's definitely more of a, this is not that there aren't challenges and camaraderie, but it's very much so a job, right? It's very much so like, if you had asked me 3 years ago, like, who are you? I would have said, oh, I'm an engineer at Icon.
Right.
Now I would give you the like, yeah, I'm a dad of 4. I have a loving wife. I love Southern California. I like playing basketball. That sort of thing. But I probably wouldn't lead with, I'm an engineer at the startup right now.
For sure.
It's not something that is an identity for me. But while I was at Icon, that was it. That was all I did. Right. Like
I was not a very good father while I was at Icon, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I had my third kid around the time that you had your first,
Right.
and I felt like I could, like, we moved here and I was like, oh, hey, you're two and you're here.
You got it.
That's cool.
No, the Kool-Aid drinking was real, and it wasn't like we were the ones brewing the Kool-Aid, right? Like, it was just such a unique opportunity. I've felt like that before. So we're actually sitting in the building of my third startup right now. Mock Industries, by the way, is like where we're at. But like the startup prior to Icon, two of the three co-founders there ended up being two of the three co-founders at Icon. And so very similar scaffold when it came to like their ideology around how to build out the team. But you can't just force culture onto a spreadsheet or an org chart. I think it had a lot to do with the stage of the company, but I think it also had a lot to do with like the first 15 people in the door. And like, that's probably like feels arbitrary number, but at that juncture, it feels like all of the professional services that you need to worry about are taken care of, right? You got somebody on legal, you got somebody on finance, you got somebody leading the direction of the company, you got somebody fundraising, and you got a bunch of other people trying to like build stuff and solve problems. And everybody is so inundated with the work that like, you kind of don't have time to BS. It's like, you get along, you have the conversations that you need to have, you drink beers together, and you get right back to work. And like, my child was born during this first year, and I spent the vast majority of my son's first year of life working on Icon projects. I'm a father now and much further down the line, and I think that that's probably true. I don't think I was the best father at the time. So much of my time, energy, effort, mental space was going to this thing, but that's because of how special it was. Like, if it was just a regular ass job, excuse my language, I don't think we would have identified with it the way that we did. I don't think we would have fallen in love with it and the people the way that we did. And ultimately, I don't think it would have gotten effort from us the way that it did. It was just like a really, really unique moment. Not for nothing, the company that I'm at now is approximately 30 or some odd employees. And so we're at that point where it's like about to go into the next fundraise, about to start professionalizing some of the things. And there's just like a natural friction that exists between like, hey, we're this fast, no-make, scrappy startup, and we got some professional services that we need to bolt on, because the goal of every startup is to escape that.
Yeah,
and
not be a startup.
And that's always uncomfortable, because the things that you could do, the hats that you could wear, the roles and responsibilities that you had when you're this big are full lines of business with verticals and layers of leadership and bureaucracy that exist in them for some good reason and for some just corporate reason, but like, it has to happen. And so getting to be a part of that sparkle, as the way that you described it, is so cool. And I recommend that if you've got the teeth for it, you should try it out, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get a chance to take one all the way.
So is it more the mission of the company and what you're trying to do, or is it more like the relationships and the people that are there that you don't want to let down, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I talked about proving to myself that Icon could work, right? Because I remember telling Ballard during one of our first conversations about Icon, before it was Icon, that the biggest challenge that we would face is probably technologically was probably the materials. As the 3D printing construction, I guess, industry has progressed, you see a lot about like the robots and the like the material management, but not the material itself. And it's almost a silly argument, because they're all going to work, right? Like, it's the material is what matters. And so to prove that out by joining a company and actually doing the work was something that I just needed to do, like, for myself. So that was that challenge in and of itself made it worth motivating other people, finding the right people to go on that journey with me, etc. But there is something about the number of people, I think so as well. Just because you have to know everybody. And then again, when we were raising our Series A, and I remember, like, in the early days with the seed round, like, I put the first Vulcan 2 entirely on like my personal credit card. I remember telling Jason, like, after when we were going to raise that Series A, I'm like, hey, just so that you know, we've raised, I think it was 10 or 11 million was the seed round.
I think that's right.
If all we do is raise 10 or 11 million for a seed round, build 10 homes in Mexico and go bankrupt, that's a good venture for me. Like
We made some change.
we made some change. I can hold my head high and walk out this door and be proud of what we've accomplished here. Jason didn't particularly like that statement. I think he found it inspiring, but not the right mindset.
Inspiring and reductive. I mean, the mission statement, we're talking about houses in the billions, right? Like a meaningful impact to the global housing crisis is like in the mission statement of the business. So when you're your first engineers like, hey, we built 10 of these, we're now good to go. We proved our point. We can do it. And that's funny. I remember that story from Jason's vantage where they're told about it. We're like, can you believe this? And I'm like, well, I mean, on both sides.
We've proven that we can do it, right? Like a little bit more capital and off we go. So that was an interesting conversation. Because I think we were in the thing for slightly different reasons, right? Like, yes, I had this personal goal of mine to prove it out, but I left a very lucrative and steady job at a very successful startup for a dart throw. That being said, as a founder, you take significantly more risk than employee number one.
To answer your question from my perspective, I think it had a lot more to do with the mission after having my conversation with one of our co-founders. And it became about the people over time, but we were so early on, there were no other people. Like there was no other people to impress, or you had the three co-founders and me and Nathan and a handful of other people. Like there were less than 10 of us for the first few months. So we're having the same conversations with the same people in the building every day, but you have to prove your net worth to the other people in the building every day, because what you do is at any given time, 10% of what the company's going to produce, 30% of what the company's going to produce. And that story that I alluded to earlier. So this mystery engineer, Jason, like we're working at this co-working space, trying to get our first codex built. Like we've got some meaningful milestones coming up on the software side of the house. And this guy has an appendix that bursts. He's got to go to the hospital to have an emergency appendectomy. And it's like, well, blow right through this milestone. This is just as happening because we have exactly one person on the team that can deliver this work. And I remember getting a Slack in like the middle of the night that people are like commenting on. You get thumbs up and the cheers emoji. And I'm like, what could we possibly have to be celebrating right now? Like, we're about to not get there. And he submitted the codex from the hospital bedroom where he's just cranking with like literal incisions from an appendectomy. And like, that's how serious we all took it. So when you talk about like, is it about you or is it about the other people? When you have people creating like that level of heroics around you to get their job done, you don't phone anything. You just take it that seriously. And there was a level of like lightheartedness around the job that we were doing because it was monopoly money to the rest of the world. But for us, it was like, if my team is willing to go that far and I show up here and I half-ass it, like I'm the reason that this doesn't work. And you can't accept that. If you're the right type of person, as we all were, you won't accept that and find ways to get weird stuff done. And we did. So yes, it became about falling in love with the team that we ultimately built, but there's a decent amount of like, I've got responsibility here and there's enough skin in the game and enough ego in the game that you're just like, I've got to prove that this was worth the bet that I took to get here.
Okay. With that dynamic going on and if someone sacrifices something to do something else, that heroic, did you ever feel like you had some sort of like imposter syndrome that you weren't good enough in doing it? Or did that ever cross your minds?
It was my first management role. I'll say that. I had always been like in my past few jobs, I'd always been like one of those senior engineers on the team. But I had never been like a managing principal, if you will. So I did have, 3 other engineers looking for guidance during that time. And especially with a startup, a lot of it is guessing right.
Mm-hmm.
I
like that. It's not just guessing, right. It's guessing. Yes. You only have to times screw it up, especially if it's a hardware company. If you're a software company, you could probably take a few more swings.
Right. Yeah, so there was a lot of guesswork that went into it, like, you know, especially with like the minutia of, you know, how much is this machine gonna weigh? You know, it's like, well, like we haven't, you know, we eyeball a lot of stuff, and we weren't prepared to ask the right questions at the time. I remember when we went like go measure our first site, and we ended up bringing a tape measure, right? Like as opposed to like real like surveying gear or like
like just stuff that we know now.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Or we went to go measure our first forklift, and I remember that like either we forgot like but we ended up using like a stack of iPhones to like measure like the width of the twine between them. It's like I can look up how long an iPhone is on Google. Okay, you have an iPhone. iPhone 7 at the time or whatnot. How many iPhone 7s fit between these 2 points? Okay, that's the forklift we need. Yeah, and it was a lot of that like guesswork in the beginning of the day that we ended up getting really, really lucky. Even with the location that we started the company in, you know, Texas, you can print almost year round.
Right.
The fact that it's not a seismic zone,
relatively flat.
Yeah.
The same climate, cementitious material likes. We're kind of in this sweet spot. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Sometimes it's better to not know that you don't know how to do something and just try it thing. So to your point, imposter syndrome every day, right? But like even the job descriptions that we're writing are for roles that no one's ever done before. So it's like you can try to convince yourself you're an expert. And at certain points we had the foremost experts in the world of like 3D printing at scale pilots, right? Who are like driving this thing around because they're the only people that have ever done that before. Yeah, sure, you're an expert. We've got 15 hours under your belt, but like, what does that actually mean? We don't know. It's like you luck into some of it and then you apply the repetitive skill. Then you can write that down, teach that institutional knowledge to someone else, and now you've got like a replicatable thing. But like being at the forefront of that is like you make it up and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And we made a lot of zigs and got those right. Sometimes we zigged when we should have zagged, but like for the most part, I think our ability to course correct when we guessed wrong was as important as our ability to guess right and move forward. I think we were all kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, even that first print, the Welcome Center at Community First, we were like rain torrential. Back then, Community First, where we were printing, didn't have a road. It was just a dirt lot, like a muddy lot. And again, we were talking about this machine that isn't very mobile that we need to get from like that rock driveway. What was that like?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Community First Village is like a master planned community for individuals who are formerly houseless. They're doing amazing work. I think one of the best houseless solutions in the world. But when we partnered with them, the second phase of this business is effectively just like an open greenfield lot for future construction, which in Texas, most of the time is just red dirt. But when it starts raining, that turns into very sticky clay. So we've got a machine that weighs a couple thousand pounds on the back of an 18-wheeler that weighs a couple thousand pounds. And we've got to get a machine a couple 100 feet across a lot.
Yeah,
that became a thing.
There was a berm that we had to dig through. We had like plywood that we had like laid out to try to like roll it like over. But
the entire company, like our CEO, our CTO, me, Nathan, somebody's like getting ready to try to dig this truck out of a trench, try to get it from here to there so we can start the print.
Yeah.
Just start the job.
Yeah. And if we don't start on time and if the printer breaks on the way over there, company or like we're done. And so like the stakes were so high, everyone's so stressed. But yeah, we ended up getting a different trailer that we ordered by accident out of storage and loading the printer on that. And then wheeling that little curve. Like, I think we hit like a fire hydrant on our way over.
We're talking about people like right out of the gym off, like spotting for a guy that you're yelling into the compartment who can barely hear you. And you're like, slow it down. Like, up. No, down, stop. Dude. Like ridiculous stuff that sounds fake. You made up unless you were there.
Yeah, and the truck gets stuck and we have to pull it out with the
telehandler.
Yeah, the telehandler. it was towards the end of the print. This is all in what was it? Jason Bella was on the cover. Was it Forbes or?
This was either Wired or Forbes or one of the early tech posts.
Yeah, we ran out of gas to the generator in the end, and we had to
siphoning gas out of a truck. Siphoning gas out of a truck to get it into a gas can to put it in the generator to finish like the last 4 inches of this property, so we could celebrate the completion of the project on time, which happens at like 3 o'clock in the morning, like the day before our due date. Like, we were just cowboys and cowgirls trying to make stuff happen.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So many things went wrong on that first sprint, but you work through it, and now they go relatively smoothly.
Unrecognizable to people that work there now, or people to walk up on a job site now versus what we began with. And that's absolutely what you want, right? Like, you want to look back at product offering and laugh at how bad it was, but like, you need these incremental steps, the progress, improvement, the thing that shouldn't have worked that did, the idea that you didn't implement a V1 that makes it into V2 that ultimately is the reason why you can continue. And you can't quit at all during that time frame, or you never realize that dream. So it's a lot of stop and go and just fail forward and try harder and believe that your neighbor is also not going to quit on you or beat you up when you continue to piss them off for the thing that you keep asking for.
Always move in the direction of good is what I would tell my team. That's all that matters. Direction of good.
What ways do you feel your contribution had a lasting impact on Icon's development and culture?
Ooh. On my last day, I tried to use SolidWorks for all of their CAD. And I remember on my last day, my last check-in of parts and drawings, I realized that I owned something like 80% of the parts at Icon when I did that last check. So they're going to be digging through my data for a while. There was also a very contentious decision that I made on day one, which was to use Imperial units as opposed to metric. And so this plumb me for the rest of my life. Metric, for the record, is the better system. I know this.
What? No, come on.
Yeah, I do just like say feedback.
Yeah.
Contention is maybe barely raising to the level of how nasty some of these bits.
Because it is a robot science company, right? Like, you should use metric. Like, I understand that. But when you only have $10 million in the bank and you need to move as quickly as we did, and it's construction, and I'm hiring Americans, I chose Imperial because what I want them to do is when they boot up the machine and it moves, I want them to like know from the, raised in a culture, I guess, that they know how far that machine was supposed to move and how far it actually. It's like there are certain people who definitely know grams, but most people know ounces and pounds, right? And so when I ask someone to get a 3,000 pound sack of concrete versus a 5,000 pound sack of concrete, they have to know, like, oh, that one, like, visually, how much 3,000 pounds of concrete is. The same thing with, like, how many square feet are you printing, right? I know that the X-beam, for example, in our early printer was exactly 20 feet long. But if I asked them to do the conversion from meters to feet, that would have just been, especially when you're sleep deprived and et cetera,
Right.
it just didn't. I didn't think it would translate well.
Well, I remember having a conversation on units where we were talking about like linear cups of material, just trying to figure out how much we printed at a time.
It's just so wonky.
And so, but when you are sourcing American components and trying to build stuff cheaply, I made that decision way back, and it's probably carried through to today. So they're probably wondering why I chose Imperial over metric. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I get that, but back when you don't have a lot of money
and you got to go to Home Depot, we were making Home Depot runs every day.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. Like, what are you going to buy? The Imperial tape measures that are like right there, are readily available for the team.
Yeah. Or like move that auger, 3 inches And I got to know like what that is, right? Or like go over there and dig a hole, like 12 inches down, 3 feet away from like, because we have those units just baked into us as Americans. That was a decision that I made very, very early on. That does not make sense now. And I used to wave it out. Well, we're an American company, so we use American units. Or what's another thing? Another like stupid excuse. But yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I said a lot of things to try to make it make sense to people, but in reality, it was because we need to move fast and save money. Was the actual reasoning when I opened up my first part and clicked, inches, pounds, as opposed to millimeters, kilograms. It's not that I can't use metric; it's I won't use metric. Is another like thing that I would say often. Yeah. What other lasting impacts? I hope some of the like don't take yourself too seriously things have translated well.
I hope so. I can't speak to the current culture. I really hope that that's the case. One thing that I don't think I fully appreciated at the time, ex-service, right? Like, there's just like, you got to take these field operations. Like having someone like Nathan, having a group run by someone like Nathan that can take the tension out of the room without deflating the room was something that I think is wildly underestimated in an early company culture. Like his updates were almost always like written out of like song lyrics, like just like a very kitschy way to like deliver very granular technical information. And I'll always appreciate your approach to the business at that pace.
There was a lot of Fast and Furious references.
Absolutely.
A lot of Taylor Swift references.
I think I still have some of those that day. I was just like, it feels absurd. It's like, this is very technical and very dense. And like, I didn't want to claw my eyeballs out after having read that for the last hour of my life. I think this is an easy one for me. I was very fortunate to have the lasting legacy of like being primarily responsible for hiring pretty much all of our first 500 employees. The culture that got built started with the 10 or 15 people in that room. And then that lasted through employees like yourself who like ultimately took that baton and ran with it. Like we were hiring the right people, put the right butts in the right seats. And then it just kind of feels like magic. And we talked a lot, right, about the material science and the fluid dynamics, about and pitch and role and the things that have to work for Icon to survive. And the truth of all of that is Icon survived because the right people were working on the right problems. And that feels like a legacy that will survive. We're talking about some of the early employees that are still there. I think Evan Jensen is still like the head of strategic research and development at the company. There's a through line directly from the recruiting efforts that went into getting that guy. I don't know how the hell we convinced that guy to stop working on the automated systems he was working on to come to us. That lives on today. And like the people element is ultimately the reason why the company works, right? The tech stack is important, but if you don't have the right people, the tech stack won't work. So it's a good point. So that one feels very, very near to my heart. I think the second one is like being the person that signed the lease on the location of a building that is now burned down, put the business like in the heart of what feels like real Austin, like south of the river. You can see the top of St. Edward's University, 8 minutes away from downtown and University of Texas. It feels very much like this business belongs where it's at. I can remember standing in that building with like you and Michael Harper and Jason Ballard and no other employees and feeling like we made the right decision. And that business park is still home for this company and we made the right decision. So like those two things feel great when you start talking about like the legacy of business.
Yeah. Now, I will say it did take Dmitri a little while to get on board with the humor.
Like I said, ex-service member, always a Marine. Why aren't we fucking around and make things? Let's do what we got to do.
No, but I remember the first time where I really realized that it kind of got to him like that is we had just finished the homes in Nakabuka, or the first set of homes in Nakabuka. And Brooke, our PR lady, sent us, like, we had made like the headline of some like national paper or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was New York Times or WSJ.
But it was in Spanish. And she said, this is what was just published. I have the English translation somewhere. I'll send it to you guys when I get it.
I know exactly what you're talking.
And so with that visit, like I don't, first of all, I don't speak Spanish, but I immediately responded with, "That's so cool that we're giving tours next Thursday." And apparently you walked into a room with her yelling at some poor reporter.
Yeah, she was like, why would you tell people that we're in all the tours? Did you read like this? And I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
And so Dmitri run like 15 minutes later, you know, Dmitri's like pulls up into the office, like, "What did you do?" But it was just me. Like, so there's a running rule after that moment at Icon that if I ever made a joke, I would have to follow it up in Slack with, "This is a joke."
Name it is fine. Very succinct and like to the point. And if you're not sitting in front of him and you don't get like his facial expression to go along with it, especially if it's just like deliberate and slack, you have a tendency to believe the stuff that he said. It wasn't just me. It wasn't like I was just like the village idiot who like, like I remember talking about the senior leaders of the company. It's like, is this real? Like, what is Nathan saying? It was a thing in the company for the first months. It was like, he's just joking. You have to like tell new people, like, he's just messing with you. He's not being serious. We had to like get to the point where everybody understood, oh, that's just Nathan. And it took us a while there. And we almost made some weird decisions based on things we thought you were being serious about.
What? Okay, so what was one of those almost weird decisions?
Well, I know that we went through like a naming convention as we're like building out everything, and like kind of crowdsourcing what we want to name rooms and computers and blah, blah, blah. And like, we're all trying to take this thing really seriously. And I remember you would submit it like a list of names that are like wildly inappropriate, like off topic, don't make sense. And it's like, what are you talking about?
I suggested that we name our conference rooms after failed startups. It must come.
This is the sort of thing that we're doing. It's like, we're just trying to like name the conference, move on to like, no, I don't know. I was even fine on the checklist.
Fair enough. Sounds like a great conference room.
So there's a lot of those moments, but then you get endeared to someone like Nathan, and you can't get them out from under your skin. And you need that person on the team to get you through some of the stuff that's likely coming your way. So when the printer doesn't work for a week, or you get, so escalating trade war into 100-year flood, into Zika virus, into COVID-19, and you're just getting incessantly beaten over the head with this isn't going to work. You need somebody to inject a little bit of humor into the business so people don't quit and they keep trying.
The real treasure is the friends you make along the way. Like, it's like stupid comments like that. When like people are like,
talking about the strike. If you need that word, and you think you need that when it's actually happening. So, a lot and appreciation for a point of two.
But yeah, no, it annoyed a lot of people. I will say that I think one of the reasons that I realized it was probably time to leave is when that started becoming less and less appreciated over time. When you reach the hundreds of employees that Icon has now, you know, that they're hiring specialists as opposed to generalists, and everyone needs to keep in their lane and that sort of thing. It gets harder to have, you know, some guy that you barely know who, you know, sits in 2 buildings over making cracks like that. Like,
is this real?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, Ballard. Bandwidth was really low on some conference call or something like that way back in the day. And I was like, and he like sent out a Slack being like, "Hey, I'm having a lot of video trouble. Are we using like some excessive bandwidth for some reason in the office?" And I think I responded something like, "Yeah, I'll stop the Fortnite tournament. Whoever has the most kills right now is just the winner," or something like that. And I remember like afterwards, a couple of people like being like, do we really get that? Well, I like, do people not actually work? I just like, that are like really nice computers. The $3,000 computers that you're buying everybody, is that what we do here? So it's difficult to hit that balance, and I definitely don't hit it often. So my current team is getting a little taste of that right now, and I don't know if it is. I think they're finally getting used to it, but it's been 2 years.
the dry humor. There's a ramp up. There's but we spent that time getting on another, and you can appreciate it. And what you don't realize, and this is actually really important, I think, for anybody who's like studying what they're trying to learn in these, is like one of the things that you don't realize, especially when you're early, is an appreciation for what the business is when other people enter it. So we didn't have anything when we started. We were just happy to continue to grow and scale. Cool. There's 30 people here now. There's 100 people here now. There's 300 people here now. Who's the new guy, right? And everybody knows you, but you don't know everybody because you were there early. But at some point, people are showing up post Series B, post Series C. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. There's a robust office space. Stuff works. There's no questions to be answered about like the tech stack. It's just like things are doing what they're supposed to do. And that's a categorically different job than the one that you had for however long you had. And there is a gap between those two employee types, right? And if you don't do a good job of like surfacing that conversation around like what you have been building versus what they inherited, there could be a lack of appreciation for what you do and a misstep in how you communicate to the people that inherited what you helped to build. And it's a really important conversation for every startup, is to like evangelize your history and appreciate the moment in time that you exist. Because if you don't align those two things, there'll be unnecessary and copious amounts of friction in between your legacy staff and your new staff members. And that's like vital to the survival of your culture.
Transferring that culture, maintaining that culture and developing it. I remember like I could walk up to Jason's office, or I could walk up to go see Alex, and there's like, oh, you're talking to the CEO, you're doing this, or just like walk into anyone's office and just say, hey, what's up? What's going on? And it was just kind of like I can't believe you did that. Why would you go just talk to the CEO? Why would you go talk to whoever? That's when I realized, oh, I think it's time to kind of step out too, because of that gap was growing. And I didn't know how to transition into that ongoing employee state because I had been there so long. Did you Nathan, you said you experienced that. Dmitri, were you seeing kind of that as you were going, as you exited, or?
I kind of always lived on an island. Like you were so early, like there wasn't a whole lot of that early on. And then after a year and a half, almost 2 years in, I transitioned to human resources, people team. I don't know if you know this. People don't necessarily gravitate towards their human resources professional. You pick up somebody that, like, regardless of whether or not they knew you or had a relationship with you or was excited to talk about you at some point, like people will go out of their way to not interact with the HR people. And it's not necessarily because we were like doing it. I think at the time that I managed HR, I think our retention rate was somewhere around 85%. We weren't like clawing and hacking like employees away, but it's just like people have this internalized mechanism that like HR equals bad. So like I didn't do a whole lot of interaction with folks at that phase in my career. It was just like, hey, that's the HR guy, like, hey, from over there, and then they'd leave, right? There was a point where like we were doing happy hours at the beer place, and it was like I would literally avoid going because I knew that it would make people less comfortable that the human resources guy was at the beer thing. That kind of was the beginning of the pullback, I think, from a cultural standpoint for me. It was like, hey, like I'm just, in other people's minds, I am just this person now. And that's something you have to deal with, right? Like this is not a boohoo story. Like I was paid handsomely to go do a job that ultimately worked out well for me and my family. But it signaled the change from a cultural standpoint for me. And I kind of spent most of the rest of my time there as somebody that like was attached to all the things that people were fearful of, right? Like reductions in force, changes in pay, restructures. Hey, you got to sit over here now. Hey, there's this layer of leadership now. Hey, I got to implement this new policy. So people started doing what you do with HR professionals. And so I kind of got used to that. What I will say is towards the end, there was clearly a change in the way that the building felt. There was a light and jovial, hey, you can talk to anybody about anything sort of cultural through line that existed in the business for years. And I remember very specifically an instance where I was like, that was a weird interaction. Oh, that thing that I remember is gone. And that's okay, right? Like it doesn't have to be everything for everybody. and it's phases. And so you don't expect it to be like a static state of like, oh, this is wonderful. But I could definitely remember like a couple of interactions that I had towards the end. I was like, oh, okay, this is a different place. And that's fine. Like we built it into the company that it deserves to be. And that doesn't have to serve how I feel it should feel here. And that's all right. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, so knowing all that y'all know now and the experience that you had at least just in Icon or the other startups, what would you tell your younger self as you started in Icon? What advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell myself unequivocally, you can throw yourself at the work, but don't get emotionally invested in the work. I think one of the hardest things to do is to decouple the person that you are from the job that you do. And I saw it happen so many times to so many people where, especially at a mission-driven company like that, it becomes everything that you want it to be. And ultimately, when it shifts away from this like small, family-oriented, like mission-driven thing, it starts to disappoint you because a company doesn't have feelings. A company's job is to deliver product at ever-increasing margins with less and less human intervention. And so when the company starts to work, it feels like you're losing something. If you can just show up and go balls to the wall and deliver the work and leave that place and move on to the other areas of your life that support healthy emotions, then you're probably right. But it's so easy to say and so difficult to do. And the earlier you are all in that journey, the harder it is to decouple too. So I would tell that person, hey, Dmitri, you're not going to listen to me, but try to keep the emotions out of it. He would have told me to F off, and he would have probably been right because it's nearly impossible to do. And so that's what I would tell.
I don't know. Part of me wishes I had asked for more in terms of more equity, more money, whatever. I still go back and forth on whether the work was worth the reward. It's definitely worth the reward in the fact that, like, I know people like you and Dmitri, and I still text with the engineering group every now and then, mostly in emojis, but well, not, I still speak with Jason and Alex and Evan on a very, very sparse basis as well. Mostly congrats on
how's it going?
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely worth it in that regard, right? I don't think that I guess I do keep in contact with most people in my previous startups as well, but I don't think it's with the same reverence. Yeah, that and the same, like, it's like once a month that I'll get a phone call or a text or whatnot from somebody that I worked with at Icon. Whereas everywhere else, it's more of a once a quarter, once a year type of deal. And it could be just because Icon was my most recent job that I left. But in terms of, like, while I was in it, I often ask myself, is the risk that I took joining Icon or the work that I did joining Icon worth 10% of what CEO and co-founders put into it? Is it worth, the 1%, 5%? Like, it's hard to place a number on that. But the number that I keep
behind that
is always significantly more than what I was actually compensated while I was there.
That's fine.
But I don't know. So I think I would always ask for more, or would be something that I would tell my younger self. Now, I think I would ask my younger self to guard the culture a little bit more. And I think that some of the more recent hires at Icon, or the people who had just joined when I was on my way out, the retention rate on those people is significantly less than some of the earlier people that I hired. And I think that there's a little bit less of that camaraderie that we felt there now. And I don't know how I would have preserved that better. Bringing back free lunch is one of that.
Hey,
but
it's free lunch and free beer and coffee.
Yeah. So because it's a startup, and because you ask so much of your employees beyond their normal job duties, I think it's important to make everybody feel like they're important. There's a lot more hierarchy.
There's a lot more. You have to go through the right channels to request X, Y, and Z. You know, like in the early days, if I asked someone to come in on a Saturday and work a full day, like I knew that would say yes, unless they were like flying to see their parents or something like that. Because I felt like Icon was built in such a way where they took care of everything else, right? Like they took care of my food. If I needed to bring food home to my family, there was something there that I could like pack up and do. But as Icon progressed, I felt like that there was a little bit less of that. We started feeling more like employees, right? Yeah, it was a weird thing. It became more and more clear that it was time to go for me.
I love the first probably 2.5, 3 years of culture that we built. Culture, you know, very much one of those things, like, you know, when it's there, you feel it when it's not. I think we all aspire to like work in amazing cultures, but amazing cultures are really difficult to cultivate. So I think it was really awesome to be a part of one, to like help build one, to help maintain one. And then ultimately, when things change, I think it's okay to warn them and it's okay to make decisions about whether or not that's still a place for you. My hope is that the amazing people in that building can experience some glimmer of the magic that we got a chance to cultivate for as long as we did.
Yeah, it's sharing that vulnerability with everyone, that those struggles, those challenges, those triumphs, those wins, and then seeing the culture shift or the change as the company grows and develops. You have to inject some sort of hierarchy. If you want to stay small, you can maintain that easier because you have one-on-one communication with everybody. But as soon as you throw in a lot more people, more personalities, egos, whatever, you need that hierarchy or that more corporate thing to happen to, you know, help the company grow. It's like you were saying earlier, the company doesn't have feelings, right? It's about margins. It's about making profit and keeping the company sustained.
Yeah. Do you take money from outside entities? Those entities have expectations and deliverables, and they don't care about whether or not you're getting free lunch. They do care about whether or not the product ships. And so like, it's just, I would tell any younger person like attempting to get into this space, it's like, just be willing to advocate for yourself, ask for what you believe that you're worth, and then ultimately like try to find things that are fulfilling for you outside of just the work you're delivering, because that company is actively working to move away from a company that requires you to be emotionally invested in it.
And you don't see it changing, right? It's all hindsight. It's always looking back and say, oh, that changed. You don't really anticipate the change either.
You feel it,
yeah,
and you get twinge stuff and like, oh, that was different. And the cumulative effect of those changes over time lead cultures to different places, good, bad. And I think we're talking about what we feel like was a high water mark and then a subsequent downturn in that. But a culture can move the other way, right? You had the right people, you had the right mix of things, product offering, shift in office space, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of things kind of play into that variable. The one thing that I am most proud of is that I feel like we had the exact right mix of people to create the exact right culture necessary to get that business from 0 to 1. I don't know that I'll ever have that mix ever again.
Yeah, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, I think. If you do, you're really lucky. So the whole question was, who is employee number one out of all the experiences that we've had?
I have my offer letter digitally, and I think, so I had this conversation. I pulled like our old CFO, I think, had our offer letters. They all came in successive order. So it's definitely some version of mine, Nathan's, and Jason's, obviously not Jason Ballard, the co-founder, but Jason, the software engineer. They're all boom, boom, boom. But I think because Nathan didn't sign his offer letter on vacation, I beat him by 2 weeks.
So I got my offer letter on 6/30/2018.
I think I also got my offer letter on 6/30.
Should we compare times?
Oh yeah, let's see the timestamp. Come on.
Do you have the timestamp?
I mean, I have the email.
Oh, let me see if I have email of my current business one.
Now it depends on which email address it went to.
I think it definitely went to my personal. It had to have. Icon email addresses.
Oh, speaking of Icon email addresses, we were in the group that had our first names only in the emails.
So I was in the group that we were still icon3d.co.
Mm.
Yeah, I was Nathan at icon3d.co in August of 2016. So before Icon formally started, that was the day after they submitted.
Oh, I have a funny story about my offer letter, which I just found the email thread and it's hilarious. So I get the email, like, again, they're like, hey, we don't have money yet take your wife on vacation, take a break between the last thing and this thing. When this gets funded, you're going to get a phone call. So I get the phone call. I get the emailed offer letter from Jason to my personal email, CC Evan Loomis. And in my excitement, I respond and I BCC'd my wife on my response. She's not paying attention to the fact that she's BCC'd, and she replies, all. She's like, oh, babe, this made me ugly cry. You're a great writer. I'm super excited about this opportunity. And then Evan Loomis, who's also his jokester, was like, do we need to leave the room? And like responded back to my wife. And like for the first 6 months of the company, she was so embarrassed to be anywhere near Evan because he called her out on responding reply all to the email chain. But like we waxed poetic back and forth because this was a big change for us.
All right. So I got my offer letter from Alex, 6/30/2018 at 12:23 p.m.
6/30/2018 time Startup.
To add to the suspense, my batch number was lower than Dmitri's.
Where'd you find your text?
It was in Gmail. I just clicked on the down arrow and it opens up the metadata.
The metadata on this one. 4:15 p.m.
Okay, so I got my offer letter first.
I signed my offer letter.
But he signed, so on 7/2, I verbally accepted it, but said I'm off the grid traveling this week, so I can't sign this letter. But I'm excited to join Icon. That was 7/2.
And I was having the same conversation on 7/1/7/2. They actively told me like, hey, we don't have anything, okay, we will.
So I sent back my signed offer on July 13th, 2018.
I beat you by like 4 or 5 days there with their return. When was your start date?
My start date was originally August 15th.
My start date was August 6th.
So he started before. But in my offer, you can see this. I crossed out August 15th and wrote the 20th in.
And you're like, I'm dead.
I'm not
coming. I'm not coming. I'll be there in a week. Oh, man, this is so funny. But I mean, that's how bang it was, right? Like these probably all went out with a batch of emails to like the first 6 people that they had identified were going to be a part of it. But what I will acquiesce, Nathan predates me, and the wooden prototype was the reason that we all got an opportunity.
Yeah. So we're talking about dates that happened in 2018. My first talk with Ballard about Icon was August 26th, 2015. That was my first conversation ever about Icon.
Yeah, that predates me by a while because I was still working at Renewal by Anderson prior to Treehouse. So I had been in net. Yeah, and Ballard. I didn't go on to meet them for another year and a half.
Gotcha. Jason Ballard has this idea that he wants to 3D print stuff. You have some background in 3D printing, which you might be to him. The introduction by Loomis. And so that's when I sat down with Ballard, and they wanted to do a small test, like a 10 by 10 test print, something like that. Like, it's not a mechanical problem. It is 100% of materials.
And that ended up being the most statement in history.
Did you interview for Icon?
I did. I tell this story all the time. I had successive interviews. I did an interview with Jason. I think I was referred by Jason. I interviewed with Alex, and I interviewed with Evan Loomis. Evan Loomis showed up to my interview an hour late. I was about to leave. He asked me to go to Smooth's on Lamar.
Right across from Central Market.
Yeah, I don't do breakfast food. So I was just sitting in this breakfast place, nursing a glass of orange juice for like 45, 50 minutes. I get a call like, hey man, I'm on my way. I'm like literally about to hit a tab and walk out. He shows up in a huff. And it very like Evan Loomis fashion, like we're at a diner in the middle of the afternoon, puts his feet up on the table, and it's like, tell me why you're better for this job than person X. It's like my whole interview. I'm telling him why I think I would be a better fit for the company. I met with Alex 2 days after that at the house that we got permitted a few months later. And he is a ball of nerves. He knows his job, but he does not want to be interviewing people. And we're having this very awkward exchange about me potentially joining this company. And I walked out of that interview feeling like I needed to text my wife, like, this is probably not happening. Like, that didn't go well. I don't think that this is not a good deal. And then I received my offer letter in short success.
So Loomis texted, we chatted on the phone on May 16th, 2018, about joining Icon. And I interviewed on June 8th, was like my first official interview with Icon.
I don't have that data to say when I interviewed, but I will never forget.
Yeah, it was more of a like meet and greet the team kind of deal at that time, because I was already trying to hire software engineers, robotics engineers that I knew to join Icon as well. So there we go. So I don't know.
So I think.
So he started before me.
I started before him, but like he started working on the problem before me. So I think Nathan's at point 0 and I'm to point number 4.
I don't know.
Why did we have Jason? If we had Jason Ford here, he'd probably say, wait, fellas. I started working on the software stack way before y'all. But no, that'll be a part of the lore. I think kind of stuff like 3 coffee table books coming out of this conversation at some point. We can all pontificate on who we think the person was. But we've been having this conversation in a friendly manner for about 6-7 years.
Yeah, it was interesting because to this day, not saying anything against, I've worked in many wonderful places, but my favorite job to this day is still surgical. I had a great boss, I had a great team, etc. So when my wife's postdoc ended and we were looking at each other saying like, we had like registered kids in school and everything. We're like, we're staying in the Bay for another year. My text message to Evan is, I'm not going to look to leave until 2019. So he convinced me to come in and at least take a look. Or something like that.
Tires, something like
but it was interesting because my wife at the time had started looking for positions back in Austin. We still owned a home back there that we had rented for a year. And it all kind of like landed in this like whirlwind of thing. My wife got a position at UT, and shortly afterwards, while we were almost declining that, Evan Loomis gives me the call and like, no, we're actually serious. We're finalizing our round.
Yeah, it's getting done. Do your best for yourself. You're already here.
So it kind of all fell into place at the same time. But before we had
decided
on vacation, left a week earlier.
It was the whole topic of our vacation. It was the only reason we were on it. We were looking at our wounds from like, again, we closed the previous organization maybe 7 weeks before this. I had closed 3 locations, reduced the staff by like 95% just so we could get all the remaining construction jobs done. So I fired like 200 people. I'm like the opposite side of the startup story, which is like, this didn't work. You're delivering peak. You're having tough conversations with people that are having material impact on their lives and livelihoods. So I was looking at my wounds like, hey, we just get right back into the regular, normal workforce. And then he calls me and he's like, go on a vacation. The money's coming. We're doing this. And it's a really hard thing to trust. I'm super glad that I took that flyer. I'm super glad that Evan Loomis called both of us.
Yes. So I've been talking with Evan since 2014 about possibly doing something together for the longest time. And so we had kind of put that all to rest. Like, well, we're going to the Bay. I'm going to have to be a real engineer now to make sure that we can afford to live here. Our entire road trip after, while we were mulling over this offer was, do we put all of our eggs in Evan Lewis's basket? And the answer was yeah. So we're very happy that we did.
Right.
It sounds like a very similar conversation. It's like, yeah, no, I really like Evan, but he's the guy that we're going to trust, because my wife at the time was pregnant with our third child as well. And I was like, I kind of need a steady job. Austin doesn't have all that much hardware in there. I was just telling Dmitri earlier that it's only now, it's been 2 years that I've been at this new startup, and it's only now that they realized that I do other things besides mechanical engineering.
Like, wait, how can you tell us?
Yeah,
that was intentional.
No, I let it slip. They were talking about like some device that needed a phone app connected to that. I was like, oh yeah, I'll look that up next week. And they all looked at me and they're like, wait, you can write like Android? I was like, shit. Yeah, I sent out my first like PCDA a couple of weeks ago, and like my manager got like really confused. He's like, hey, so I had a PM who said that but you're a mechanic, so I don't understand. I was like, oh crap, it's out of the, like, there's things that I keep off my resume for a reason. I have the opposite problem.
Nathan P. Wang is a people manager. P. Wang knows how to write code. Like, You heard it here, folks. Good notes out of the hands thing.
So, yeah, a lot of people will look at my resume. It's a very like mechanical engineer's resume. I've kept it under wraps for a very, very long time. It's only not, but again, during the icon days when you're doing everything comes out right away. Especially when it's a need to have.
Yeah, it was a must. We needed every hat he wore. So,
And then no one was
So-
surprised either, though. That's the cool part. Now that y'all are no longer at Icon, do you have any personal projects that you're working on? Any initiatives or anything you're like excited about?
I've taken a backseat on a lot of things here. So one of the reasons that I left Icon is because my wife and I were thinking about having child number 4.
one more, and you got your the Wang best. LT.
Yeah. So I was looking for a position where I wouldn't have the same issues that I had as a father with my 3rd child. So I'm coasting a little bit. I have a fairly stable job and a startup that's fairly established. I'm always mulling things in the back of my head, but not actively working on anything currently. I realized from my recent stint with the stuff that I've tried to keep hidden for the past 2 years that I'm a little rusty in the skills. So I'll probably pick up something soon just to brush up, but not really doing much besides work and doing the family thing right now. I know that you have unlimited amounts of energy.
Well, I don't know about unlimited, but I went the other direction. I was always kind of a people leader and a true manager. One of the things that I had some insecurity about after leaving Icon was like, hey, I've been buoyed by other people's ability to raise money, conceptualize an idea, and bring it all the way to market. Those are things that I really wanted to make sure as I'm building out this resume in my mind, the CEO that I want to be eventually. I wanted to start a venture from my own headspace through fundraise, implementation, market fit, and then ultimately deliver some products. And with some fantastic partners and friends, I started 4 personal ventures in the local Austin area, a black car service called LSATX, which I think is a service that's missing from a mid-sized city, a wine bar with some fantastic partners and friends of mine called Reserve, East 7th Street. Come check us out. Minority-led, really interesting wine offering. A consulting company that I started with my partner, and then invested heavily into a gym called Collective that's now got multiple offerings there in the city and expanding to other states. So that was a really fun exercise for me to prove, like, 1, you could do this. 2, it still takes a team, right? It still takes a fantastic village and people that know things that you don't. But now kind of bolting on those skills, I've decided to get back in the startup game, and we're sitting here. My newest startup, I think I'm employee number 35 at Bach Industries. So I think it never leaves you. You just have to decide how much bandwidth you want to give to the things that you're giving up. I've got 2 kiddos under 5. So this is like a very different iteration of me than the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed no kids version of me that was at Icon. And you learn how to set those boundaries. You learn what you could say yes to, what you could say no to. You learn what to ask for and what to obfuscate from your resume over time. That's just about you getting savvier, because the space around you is always growing, and you got to be willing to meet the business where it's at. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. What outside of Anthology's got you excited to get you out of bed in the morning?
Just starting this own venture, this Startup Anthology idea has just been about it for me.
It's a big idea that has a space in the market because there's so many people. The road is littered with people that have tremendous stories to tell, and they never get heard.
Everyone interviews the founders. Everyone, talks to the CEOs, but no one really talks to the people that make their dreams a reality. So that's the cool part about this whole conversation is Icon started because of, huge vision and a huge dream and an idea, but it took the people to make that happen and to get it to where it is now. Every time like a different thing would happen at Icon, something would change, culture would change, grow or whatever. I was like, man, well, that chapter's over. That story has evolved. And it's like, how can we share this? Not just from Icon's point of view, but every other company or startup that's gone through similar phases, like they need to share that and help tell what it's really like. Be it good, bad, ugly, awesome, just that never told, never heard story. No one really talks about what it actually is. Hey, well, I appreciate this, guys. I really appreciate taking the time to meet.
We could wax poetic about this thing all day long. So
yeah.
I want to at least leave this episode thanking a bunch of the people that helped make that place awesome. I'm sure we could go all day, but I mean, we've mentioned a bunch of them, but obviously our founders, Jason Ballard, Evan Loomis, Alex LaRue, amazing people who took flyers on us when the thing was still concept. Brooke Bogus, I think probably one of the most talented media and marketing professionals in the world.
Scariest person at Icon. I'll say it every day.
Wasn't going to let us make any missteps in the public sector. People like Nathan Wang, people like Dana, Michael Harper, Matt. I mean, there's so many folks that just contributed to what made it work. Wale, there's just so many amazing characters that made that place special. Oh man, just like the salt of the earth people that made that place incredibly special. It would be a mistake to not try to mention all of them, and I'm certain I've left incredible people out.
I told you about the first 3 people that I hired that largely designed the Vulcan 2, which was kind of the headlining thing that thrust us from Series, I guess, into Series A. That was Dana, Kevin, and Austin. But the people that were running the machine were you and
Drew Florick.
Drew, yeah.
Connor Demora.
Oh, man.
Best printer operator in the world.
Yeah, you interviewed, right?
Connor.
Are you interviewing Ed?
Yeah, I'm trying to get Ed, but I did Connor and Maria. They both interviewed together to kind of see that whole aspect.
Connor Demora and Maria worked for me at Treehouse. They predated me there. When I got an opportunity to come over, he was one of the first people I called. And I remember there was trepidation, like, do we want to hire all these people from this place that just failed? Yeah. And that's like, I have a good enough judge of character to be like, the business isn't the humans. Trust me, there's 3 or 4 people we need to bring over. And those people lasted for years. It was Ed, Connor, and Michael Harper. And they ended up being linchpins of the operational development of that company.
Yeah. I mean, as who we mentioned, Evan Jensen already, whatever Icon's paying they're not paying about. But yeah, I have a few key milestone events that I keep talking to. When I was at Icon, I kept talking to Alex about how we keep a 3 to 6 month advantage over anybody else in the space. We have to have a breakthrough every 3 to 6 months or we're going to fail. There's probably like 15 that I could list, but one of that I always list is Evan Jensen joining Icon. Yeah. Like, okay, we're 6 months ahead again because we have this guy in the building.
Oh man, and the Evan, we're up in the conversation back up. But one thing I will say is like the recruitment of like strange characters was like always super important. But like the recruitment of Evan Jensen taught me something that I needed to know that I still carry with me today. Is like sometimes you have to trick amazing people into working at their jobs, and the bait and switch was like, oh, you're supposed to be brilliant. I don't understand why you would try to apply that to something that's going to change the world. You can keep like working on like automated pizza machines if you want to. That's cool. I'm sure it pays well. Are you sure you don't want to do this? And some combination of that and the technical conversations that we're having ultimately got that guy into our building with no business for him to be there. And so that really taught me how to approach the unicorn type candidates. And I carry that with me today. So thank you so much for saying yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Who else? Kay, our first.
Kay Shiles.
Our first, our early CMO. What was huge, that first fundraise.
Spouses, the partners that just tolerated us God all the time.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned Jason Ford.
For sure. So many great people.
Yeah. And some of the later people too, Rob Secker.
Oh yeah. Then Regina.
Yeah.
There ended up being so many, we were spoiled. There were iterations of amazing cultural people at that business we felt like we couldn't miss.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys. I'll let y'all get to y'all's lives again, and thanks for sharing.